What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Got picked up some water. We're going camping this weekend, doing a paddle trip. We've been doing these once a quarter, where we go about 20 miles or so. So looking forward to it. We got a big group of guys going out there. It's gonna be a good weekend. This by the time I post this later today, or what, I don't know. I mean, it could be, won't be that fast. But these events tend to build. But what I want to get at on today's video is a little bit of culture, a little culture war stuff going on. But mainly it's just the disillusion of the current system in which we live. So at this point, the Texas Border Patrol has been told by the Supreme Court of the United States to stand down and allow federal troops to re-man their post, which they are not manning very well, right? Because the whole idea of Marxism, if you've studied Marx, is a really short book, The Communist Manifesto. You basically need to have like a capitalist-like system. It needs to get so large and so big that the factories are in place, the capital is in place, and then you go in, he says, and forcefully take it by force, kill all the capitalists. It's in the Communist Manifesto, it's very violent. And then you can enact communism, and then at the end of the term, if you will, once you enact full, pure communism, you can get back to the humanities, which is like hunting and fishing and art and music and all the things that, you know, human beings should be partaking in, instead of working mindlessly, slavelessly at these factories because of these terrible capitalistic bastards. Basically is the book. And so we have an elite class that was educated in that thinking, in that very, very far left thinking of communism. And they're not really communists because communism clearly doesn't work. They're more fascists, which is like state-controlled government entities, public-private partnerships, you know, the current DEI stuff, like, you know, the diversity, inclusion, equity, all the buzzwords. But basically what it means is collectivism. And collectivism is a philosophy that's just never worked, ever. Has the highest kill count on record that we're aware of. Communism and lefty ideas have killed more human beings on this earth than anything else that we're aware of, as far as philosophy goes. It's really bad philosophy. We're entering a phase in American history here where we're entering into federalism, but we could, this is kind of the crossroads we're at, we could enter into super centralism, like centralized power. So what's gonna happen is one of two things. Either the states are gonna have a rise in power, and the federal government, is going to lose power, which is currently happening. So Texas, you know, Governor Abbott is like, well, I'm sending my National Guard down there to patrol the border because we don't want to allow a bunch of people in that aren't contributing to the American society. They're just basically taking, and we're not really sure why they're here. And it's like, well, there's probably a really good reason why they're here, and that reason is probably, at some point in time, it would be really easy to arm a bunch of military-aged males from Africa or wherever the hell they're from. I mean, none of them are from Mexico. Like, they're just coming in through there. And so you have convoys of people, and it would just be like, well, you know, that's how you can definitely, you know, change some things up. And so that's a long-term plan. Also, you need cheap labor as your empire starts to falter. So, like, you need to keep lawn prices, for example, low. Like, they got to stay low, because the second the dudes are like, man, my gas is up, my food's up, my lawn price just went up 3 times. It's like, well, that's a problem. So you need to keep, like, you need to have this, like, illegal labor coming in to keep prices mildly suppressed and make the society function. Like, somebody's got to pick the tomatoes. Like, these things are not, like, AI is not doing this at this point in time. So there's a reason that they would want that. Also, it gives them a voting block, a good voting base, so they assume. And then, in addition to that, you then create this federalism problem, which is great. Last time this happened, the states challenged the federal government. Abraham Lincoln said, no, you're wrong. And then they had a war over it. About 550,000 people died. So we're kind of at that same thing now, where the states are starting to feel out how much power do they have. They haven't really exercised any of their power since World War II because we've been very centralized. And so right now what you see is the states like Florida, you see Ohio, you see several others. I think Tennessee, not quite sure if Tennessee's in the group. There's about 5 of them, and 5 different governors saying like, well, we stand with Texas. We're gonna send our supplies, our people. We're sending our capital to the border to secure Texas. And then you have the Supreme Court this week that said, actually, that's illegal. You have to allow the feds to do their job. You can't keep them out of their post with razor wire. You're going to have to take down the razor wire and allow the federal troops to go to their post. And Texas is like, no. And so what we're waiting for now, and what could happen now, is the shot heard around the world from Concord, Massachusetts, when a bunch of boys and a bunch of British troops got into a scuffle, and somebody on one side got scared, no one knows who, and somebody shot, a body dropped. I believe there were 3 deaths that day. Everyone went home, and they realized, well, we live in a different world than we woke up in. And the options were arrest all of these Sons of Liberty, because it was kind of like a fraternity of guys. They're basically college kids causing a lot of problems back then, like late 1760s. A lot of the Sons of Liberty are like fraternity guys, you know, Eastern Massachusetts elites, like those type of dudes. Like Harvard was a young institution at the time, but it was still a 100-year-old institution. These kids are attending Harvard, Yale, things like that. And they were causing beef with the British troops. Basically, it was like, hey, if we get rid of the British monarchy, we could be the elites. Like, we don't need these guys. And that was an interesting conversation. It took a couple guys to die on Concord Bridge for everyone to go home that night and realize, well, there's no going back now. Like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna like wait for the British troops to come around and like get tyrannical and arrest everyone and start putting people on trial and hanging them and all sorts of stuff, or like we gonna fight them? And then once they said, yeah, we're gonna fight them, it's like, you can't lose now, because like then they're gonna hang you when they're done, when you're done. So you're gonna have to go all the way, or not at all. And so what we're seeing right now is very similar. So I don't think history repeats. I think history rhymes. And so it's the same beat. It's the same vibrational beat that was occurring at that point in time. You've got these states, they're sending their people. You've got the federal government, they're getting really tyrannical, really elitist. They've got these globalist-like plans. You've got nationalism on the rise. So you've got people like the Trump camp, and they're like pro-nationalists, like America First people. And then you've got the globalists who are like, you know what's great for me as like a Biden, you know, a Biden camper, like freaking globalism. It's great. It makes prices, like it suppresses prices. It gets me goods and resources from all over the world, and it exports American labor and like ultimately American shuds, which is kind of like, you know, your true like red-blooded Americans. They're chuds. Like they're driving around like me, like in a diesel pickup truck. They're contractors. They're, you know, like they're chuds. These elites hate them. They freaking hate them. And like the Native Americans, they're working to get rid of them. And like my suspicion is like they will probably get rid of them. I mean, or we're at a spot where we're gonna fight over it. And if that's the case, then it's like that's up for grabs. Like that. It's up for grabs. A lot of individuals will say, dude, we're like Rome, like we're collapsing like Rome. I would say that we are a lot like Rome. Rome went 1,000 years from like beginning founding to like it's over. So we're at like 250 years, so we're not even halfway through there. We are definitely over the Roman Republic part. So when you form a country, like after 1776, we formed the Republic. We had a set of rules, a document, could fit on a couple pieces of paper. These are the rules. All the power goes to the states. That's it. That's all. And over time, we had to fight, 80 years later, we had to fight the Civil War to figure out, well, who has more power, the states or the federal government? We figured out the federal government has more power. And then we did these world wars, because we wanted to figure out globally, okay, now that we are a big nation, like how big are we? And we found out after World War II, we're the guy. Like we're that's it. We're the big boy on the playground. And so now the world has been oppressed for a long period of time because we've been patrolling the seas, we've been keeping people down, we do lots of weird like CIA ops like all over the world for no reason, all illegally. People are, I mean, we got our elites smuggling kids, we got the CIA, FBI doing part of it. You know, the biggest drug traffickers in the world happened after Vietnam, and they like most of the drugs traveled on military aircraft. I mean, it's freaking mess, and you shouldn't have. So what happens is now we're an empire. We haven't recognized that we're an empire, so we're the gay American empire. We're the GAE. We're the the gay American empire. And we don't have a core philosophy, we don't have a mission, we don't have an American dream, this means different things to all different people, there's no common thing, and so we're at a spot where we're either gonna fight, we're either gonna not fight and just peacefully go into federalism, or we're gonna centralize. The centralization part of this could be like, well, Trump is selected, and I do say selected, like, I don't think that, like, your vote matters at all. Like, it's the dumbest thing in the world to me to be like, oh, well, I'll go out and vote. Like, no, dude, I got other things to do with my with my hour of time, wait in line. Like, no, dude, like, I'm not influencing in my case, like, I'm not influencing the outcome of the electoral votes for the state of Florida. Like, sorry, I got things to do. Like, it's Tuesday, like 10 a.m. Like, I'm working like this, like what I'm doing. Well, you could do mail-in ballots. Like, I don't believe the process at all. I don't think we should have a government. I don't think we should have a state level. I don't believe it at all. I'm like a complete anarchist in those views. Like, allow people to do what they want to do, allow natural law to sift it out. But Trav, there'll be a rise in violence. Probably not, actually. Like, great book. Like, The Not So Wild West, one of the most peaceful times in American history. Also Anarchy. It was America's experiment with anarchy. It was the Wild West, and it worked freaking great. And the West Coast developed way faster than the East Coast. So, you know, you gotta have a gold standard, you have to have strong men, you have to have men that are like, have values and principles. I'm not saying we can do that today, because I don't think we have those things. I mean, so there'd be a lot of like relearning, but eventually people will figure it out. But ultimately, we might go into a massive centralization. This would be like the outcome that, like, Trump is selected, somehow the election happens. I don't think that will happen. I mean, it could. I think it's 50-50. It's always happened in American history, so there's no reason to think that it won't. Like, this year would be different. However, if some troops take some shots at some state guard units, it may be. You know, maybe we will have to postpone this election or whatever it is. But if that goes through, and let's just say that you have Trump as a winner, you could very much find yourself in like late 1920s Weimar Germany. And you hear a lot of people on the left say this, oh, he's like that guy from Germany, but it's like, right, but he doesn't have a secret police yet, but he will this time. Like, if he gets back in this time, armbands are in the mail, folks. We got to deport these people. We got to have federal officers everywhere. And so what happens is the federal government's power will grow very big. So a lot of people are like, well, what they say they want is Trump. What they will get is a government that is much bigger than it is now. Just like the first time he was selected in 2016, the government ended up being much bigger in days 21 when he left. Like, much bigger. Much more indebted, the wealth gap much greater. I mean, a lot of bad things there, but like, that's just the trajectory of empire until you recognize, yep, you're in empire phase. And once you're in empire phase and you can like agree that you're on empire phase, that's great, because then you can do empire stuff. Right now, we're not doing empire stuff, which is the most frustrating thing, because it's like, if you're gonna go to Afghanistan, bad idea, but if you're gonna do it, like, call it a territory. Stick your flag in the ground. Ask your military boys, hey, would you guys like to stay here? 40 acres and a mule. Like, populate the place. Like, own it. Be an empire. Do what the Brits did all over the world. I mean, South Africa, India, like everywhere. The Brits just everywhere. So if you're gonna be an empire, be one. If you're not gonna be an empire, you're gonna be like a regional power, be one. And America's power is shrinking on the global stage. But what could be really interesting and probably good for the world is if America beefs at home and stays out of creating more World War activities. Because right now we're definitely gearing up for World War III with our supports of our 51st state, Israel, which is not a state at all. It was created in 1946 after World War II. There's a big whole story about World War II and what happened with people and where they... And I'm not really sure exactly what all happened, but I know that what we were taught and indoctrinated in public education is not 100% true at all. You know, like, we beat the Germans. Like, no, like the Russians beat the Germans. Like, the Russians lost 30 million people beating the Germans. Like, but we get credit for it. But nonetheless, we're at a spot where if something goes down in Texas, somebody gets overheated and one side shoots and there are bodies that fall, we could absolutely be in that spot where it's like, well, we don't live in the same world we woke up in. What then? And the party in power, I think, will do things to stay in power. And I think the party that's out of power will feel anxious about that. It's the wrong word, but they won't be happy about it, and they will respond. And then we get this beautiful spot where government takes its mask off, and at the end of the day we can see exactly what government is, and government is just coercion. Like, it's just fraud, it's just corruption, it's violence, it's disgusting, it's evil. There's nothing good about it. They don't have a sandwich shop somewhere they're making, like, you know, Italian subs and making a profit. They're not taking 1 + 1 and creating 3 or 4 and creating that extra surplus value for humanity. They're taking like 1, destroying it down to 0.6, and then dividing it amongst 3 of their buddies, and like, that's what they're doing. And they're doing that and all sorts of stuff all over the world all of the time. They're constantly just causing issues. But we're at a spot now where like, this is up for grabs. So I think it's a timely video. We'll see where this goes. It would be interesting, but I think that we've probably entered that point of federalism where the state governors they flex their power in 2020, and I think now they're going to militarize their power, and then we just have this showdown with the feds and the states, and then we've got to figure out, or we'll wait and find out what happens there. And my suspicion is, like, we kind of know what is likely to happen there, and if it goes violent, then it's like all bets are off. Do you have a selection in November? I don't know. And could be really interesting. So more to come, and you know, just be aware of it. Don't be worried about it. There's nothing, worrying doesn't help you at all, but you should definitely be prepared to some sort of like, what would it look like if things were weird, and like maybe the grocery store was open on Mondays instead of like 7 days a week. Like, you know, what would it look like if it was like, you know, a real national emergency and everyone ran to the ATMs to get what cash out they could get out? What would that look like? And you should just avoid that, like 100%. Like, you should have 90 days of food. You should have a way to take care of yourself and your family. You should have some currency. You should have some real money, like silver, gold, because they hold their value, because as they inflate, your purchasing power doesn't deflate, you know, or inflate with it. Like, you know, that's why you want to own those things. But ultimately, you live in a spot where this is gonna have to sift itself out, and we will see which way it goes. Catch you in the next one.